Hey folks, thanks for watching my monologue. I'd like to encourage you to visit Guns Etc. They're strong supporters of our president and the principles our country was founded upon. Guns Etc. is 10,200 square feet and it's a firearm lover's paradise. And for all your online firearms needs, just click on gunsetc.com. And if you like my monologues, please subscribe to our channel. Thanks. Well, welcome back. Wednesday, March 25th, 2020. Just for fun, do you know what we were talking about exactly a year ago? I'll give you the New York Times headline. Quote, Mueller finds no collusion with Russia, close quote. I was looking up what I was talking about exactly a year ago. That's where we were. That's what we were talking about. Now, one wonders as I did, wait, that was March of last year? Then how did we go through the entire rest of 2019 talking about and then going through an impeachment? Yeah, one has to stretch their memories, doesn't one? Of course, the Democrats who never rest, never sleep, are never satisfied, found Russia's sworn enemy, Ukraine, the cause to impeach President Trump the rest of the year. You think they're done? It's not really about Trump. They want us gone. So they can do what? What they tried to do with the China virus bailout the last 5 days. Give billions to museums, tens of millions to centers for the arts, new carbon emission standards, zeroing out the funding for Customs and Border Patrol and Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, $300 million for refugee assistance, and $1 billion to help nullification cities. The point? They just want their agenda. Doesn't matter what else is going on. And as this virus was percolating and spreading throughout China, most heavily in December and January, what were the Democrats doing? Tying up all apparatuses of the White House to impeach its leader. And they'll do anything they can to do it. The election of 2016 wasn't lost for them, you see. It was stolen from them. The virus is, as James Clyburn, the most important Democrat in the House from the South, the man who rescued and the only man who could rescue the Joe Biden campaign, the virus, to Representative James Clyburn, he who called Donald Trump a Nazi 2 weeks ago, to him the virus was, to quote last week, a tremendous opportunity to restructure things to our vision, close quote. Most of us thought the vision was just to save lives, but to and for the Democrats, the vision is to transform the country. Then, laughably, they say we're the ones who care about the economy and not people. But do note, all their red herring bailout efforts were aimed at restructuring the economy along the lines of the Green New Deal, and the people they cared most about were not Americans, but illegal aliens. They who wanted to use this crisis to defund ICE and CBP, they who wanted to bail out sanctuary nullification cities. Then, of course, there's the magician's trick, the sleight of hand, the legerdemain. What legerdemain, you may ask? Oh, how about when Joe Biden on Monday in his shadow virus briefing said, quote, we should put politics aside and meet the moment like governors all across this nation are doing, close quote. Put politics aside. But that was Monday. Yesterday, he was on MSNBC saying the president is, quote, acting like a yo-yo, close quote. And he wished the, quote, president acted like a president, close quote. I gather that's not politics because it's anti-Republican. Do stay with me on this. I've gone through this a number of times. You see it here now. We are not legitimate. We do not get the same rules as other Americans because we are not legitimate. We do not have a right to govern. We do not have a right to our political opinions. Indeed, we increasingly, whether on social media platforms or college campuses, the main conduits of thought and speech, have no right to say what we think or speak what we think. Show me the last leftist or liberal who was deplatformed. Show me the last leftist or liberal speaker at a campus that required a personal security retinue. You can't. I can show you television hosts and journalists telling their networks and other networks not to air the president's press briefings, especially during the virus crisis. Indeed, CNN and MSNBC even cut away from them yesterday, saying they are not informative or useful to promulgate their shows and content instead, which is, I guess, to them, informative and useful. Because it's anti-Trump is why it's informative and useful, as opposed to President Trump and his experts taking questions from the press corps. So listening to the president or Anthony Fauci or Deborah Birx in robust exchanges with the press is to CNN and MSNBC not informative or useful because it's a Republican president. A panel of political leftists, that's what you must hear and see. By the way, I meant to make mention of this yesterday. When Joe Biden was asked what he would do when he was on The View yesterday, part of his answer was, quote, to listen to Anthony Fauci, close quote. Everyone does understand that Dr. Fauci works for President Trump, right? It would be like, I don't know, asking Walter Mondale in 1984 what he would do about education and him saying, listen to William Bennett. That's how void and empty the Democrats are. They do not have more or better answers, or heck, even more or better experts. They just want to be the bosses. By the way, for the umpteenth time yesterday, Dr. Fauci was asked about the distance between him and the president. His answer, quote, that is really unfortunate. I would wish that people would stop asking about it because we have a much bigger problem here than trying to point out our differences. There really fundamentally at the core are no differences. When I have made recommendations, he has taken them. Fauci added, the idea of just pitting one against the other is not helpful, close quote. Oh, but it's helpful if agitation and frenzy are your business. So let's get to some of that. This pandemic has given the opportunity for all kinds of perfect power grabs and storms of permanent discomfort, of frenzy, and also putting America down. All the stories now coming out about the end of America, the end of the American dream, the end of greatness, it's almost as if they're cheering for it. But you know what a sane society does? You know what a responsible government does? It shows the good as well as the bad. It tries to calm. It tries to prevent civil and political riot. But then again, note the left. When the president pointed out a window of hope, id est hydroxychloroquine, and one of 327 million Americans, an idiot here, saw that product in his fish tank cleaner and took it and died, well, there you go. That's the president's fault. Why should the president be giving out hope when one person misinterprets it and does something so foolish you have to wonder if he even heard the president, who also said it required a prescription? Well, in the age, I guess, of 18-year-olds voting on legitimizing and commercializing medicine, its producers say treats everything from seizures to PTSD, marijuana, I suppose the man should be excused for just being hip with the times. But let's not have every American in all moments in fear, shall we? We spoke yesterday of proportionality. This is the task of politics, isn't it? Classically understood. As Aristotle put it, we should aim for a state of clarification and apprehension in the midst of pleasures and pains that allows one to judge what seems most truly pleasant or painful. This doesn't mean panic, and it doesn't mean placidity. But when does Joe Biden get to say this is no time for his word hysteria? Why does Joe Biden get to say this is no time for his word hysteria when Donald Trump originally banned travel from China at the end of January so that the left can now put us through real hysteria? Banning travel from China to Joe Biden was hysteria. Shutting down half the country and more is seemingly not quite enough. And yet it's a lot. To some, more than they can bear. Hysteria actually can breed unforeseen worse things. As the Wall Street Journal editorialized today, the economic and social science literature is replete with studies that document the harm to people from recessions and economic hardship, including higher rates of suicide, opioid abuse, alcoholism, and domestic violence. And all of this is based on what we see as about a 1.2 to 1.4% death rate from the virus, if you catch the virus. That's the metric most of us are using, given the numbers we have. But we now know that metric is still too high because it's the death rate of the cases we know of. We know of every death from the virus, every one. We have no idea how many cases of the virus there actually are. What we do know is there are more cases than those we have tested for. As two professors of medicine at Stanford wrote today in the Wall Street Journal, the epidemic started in China sometime in November or December. The first confirmed U.S. cases included a person who traveled from Wuhan on January 15th, and it is likely that the virus entered before that. Tens of thousands of people traveled from Wuhan to the U.S. in December. Existing evidence suggests that the virus is highly transmissible and that the number of infections doubles roughly every 3 days. An epidemic seed on January 1 implies that by mid-March, about 6 million people in the U.S. would have been infected. If this surmise of 6 million cases is accurate, that's a mortality rate of 0.01%, assuming a 2-week lag between infection and death. This is 1/10 of the flu mortality rate of 0.1%. Such a low death rate would be cause for optimism. Thus, back to our watchword, proportionality. Or as Aristotle put it, the mean relative to us is determined by a rational principle, and that principle is that which the man of practical wisdom would determine. Let's get back to some rational principles and practical wisdom, shall we? You're not going to find it from those whose motives are political agitation and frenzy. Those are actually the opposite of rationality and practicality. I'm Seth Leibsohn. We'll be right back.